because all we are taught is that debt is really, really bad and it can ruin your life.
I have over $5 million worth of assets because of the decisions that I made from a financial standpoint.
If you come into money, don't immediately pay off your loans, don't pay your bills, don't buy some nice shoes or nice clothes. Live like you're broke. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. Today, we're talking about bankroll or broke to bankroll, how cash DPTs can start building wealth even if you have 150K plus in student loan debt. I think this is one of the most important episodes that we've talked about in a long time because there's zero education that most PTs have received in their entire educational career on how to think about money, how to approach money, how to start paying off a student loan debt without sacrificing the compounding effect of starting to invest in themselves and into stocks or other investment vehicles earlier on. And so today, me and Ben's plan is to give you the roadmap to start paying off your student loan debt, yes, but also starting to position yourself to start creating wealth. So you don't have to wait until you're completely done paying off your student loans to start amassing some real assets that can not only fuel your life, but also start to give you peace of mind and hopefully give you a little bit of your time back in the process. We're excited to dig into it. What's happening, Ben? Good morning, dude.
Oh, I'm excited for this one. It's amazing since graduating from PT school and just really diving into financials and investments over the last 7 years on how much we don't get taught any of this, how to go about doing this the right way. And it's insane. Yeah, so I'm excited to share and what you've learned too the last few years here too.
Yeah, 100%. So let's start at the beginning. DPTs are graduating school, tons of debt. They're trying to find a job. Odds are they're getting paid less than they expected. And they're trying to figure out, how can I afford to live, pay off my student loans, and how can I even consider about investments? So I think for me, it all starts with understanding what money really is, how to think about it, because all we are taught is that debt is really, really bad and it could ruin your life. And so everyone out of fear basically puts all their money directly into paying off their student loans, not knowing that there's actually some better ways that we can manage our money where we're going to get a faster return, which then leads to us being able to pay off our loans even faster. But there's a different approach to doing it. So first, we're going to cover why traditional financial advice doesn't work for cash physical therapists, definitely entrepreneurial cash physical therapists. You want to start there, Ben?
Yeah, I also want to start by pressing one, we're not financial advisors.
Well,
Two, I also think it's important, why the fuck should you even listen to us? All right. So I'll also going to start with my journey and what that looks like and where I'm at now. So you can decide hey, do I even want to listen to this guy? Right? Who's this guy? Why is he having room to talk about it? So let's talk about my journey with it a little bit. So I graduated PT school with $150,000 in debt. I had that paid off within 2 years of graduating. It's because I chose to invest in myself. And now today, 7 years after graduating PT school, I have over $5 million worth of assets because of the decisions that I made from a financial standpoint. The only mistake that I made was actually paying off my student loans within 2 years. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But the biggest reason that I was able to pay off my student loans, this wealth, is not because I actually invested in another asset or invested in something else. I invested in myself. What I did is I spent a lot of money, spent over hundreds of thousands of dollars on business coaching, personal development, invested a lot, not just money, but a lot of time, tons of different books. And so I chose to invest in myself and acquire skill sets, acquire sales, ability to do sales, communication, learn marketing, learn all these different leadership, learn what it takes to lead a team, build a practice, financials, learned all these things. And that gave me a vehicle, which is my practice. Now my practice prints cash flow. Now I take that cash flow and then I invest in real estate, invest in stock, continuously invest back in myself. The best vehicle that you can invest in is not stocks, not crypto, not real estate. It is yourself. And so that is the biggest one that people are missing out on. We did have a financial advisor come in PT school and talk to us about stocks, bonds, stuff like that, real estate. And what they should have been telling us is how to develop and acquire skill sets that, not clinical, things that actually produce money. Clinical skill sets can produce money, right? But at the same time, there's other skill sets that produce more cash flow, and that's from investing in yourself. So long-winded, but that's my 2 cents on.
Yeah, maybe worth listening to. For myself personally, like I grew up pretty, not broke, but lower income family. Basically made enough just to be like the poorest kid in my like high school and out of all my friends. And so the way that I thought about money was always broke. And even though I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 18 years old, I was still broke for 6 years as I was trying to get my businesses off the ground, and what kept me broke was because I didn't know how to think about money or how to manage money. Basically, as I made money, it just disappeared, and I didn't know why I was never actually accumulating any of the money that I was making, and it put me in a really, really dark place. And then I started surrounding myself with people who were making millions and millions of dollars, and their lives seemed so much easier. And so they started to teach me how to think about money differently, how to take a look at, okay, what are the things I'm spending money on? How am I leveraging the capital that do have coming in, and how can I make it work for me so that I can actually create the life that I want? And now, not only have I accumulated wealth, but now I also have created the lifestyle for myself where I'm able to travel the world multiple times per year, and I'm able to invest in all of these amazing like lifestyle things without it actually coming out of my own pocket because my assets are paying for it. And so a lot of people are keeping themselves stuck in the mud thinking that they're not making enough money. But the reality is you're just not leveraging the money you're making the way that you should to allow the compounding effect to start working you towards the life that you really want to have. And so it all kind of starts with one kind of principle that I think is really important for everyone to have to understand before we kind of talk about like, all right, how are we going to start like using our money? If you want to amass like wealth and start making more money, the first hurdle you have to break is your own financial baseline that you have in your head. We all have one, and it's been given to us by our parents and the average of, the 5 people that we spend the most time with. That sets what is a normal amount of money to make, and we will always spend and find a way to reach down toward financial baseline. And a lot of people, as soon as you make more money, you are then spending it on something because you are in above that baseline. So it feels like you have an access of additional cash, and then you immediately are spending back down to it. So you're never amassing wealth. And until you recognize what your financial baseline is and actively decide that you want to increase it, you'll always stay exactly where you are. And so the first advice that I have is if you come into money, don't immediately pay off your loans, don't pay your bills, don't buy some nice shoes or nice clothes. Keep that money in the bank until you increase what your new financial baseline is. And so the real secret is just slowly incrementing what your financial baseline is over time. So without that one mindset about cash, none of the stuff we're going to share with you today is going to take root and allow you to be successful because you're always just going to spend right back down to where you are right now.
100%. It's so important to highlight how you've been conditioned about the mindset around money. Like my dad's like the most frugal person. I grew up on a small farm in Iowa. It's farmer son. Like we didn't have, didn't grow up poor, but it's not like we had a crazy amount of money, and my dad was just super frugal. And so I had to work on being able to let money go a little bit too, in a good way. Right. So I think it's a real thing. You really have to change that thermostat, if you will.
Right.
And how
Yeah,
to,
the financial thermostat. That's right. That's what it's called. Yeah, someone was just talking to me. I think maybe it was actually a training that I recently watched. But it was basically like breaking down where because of the training we've had when we're kids, we kind of demonize money. Like the people in all of the bad movies or all the villains in movies are always like the super rich people, or we look at the big like Fortune 500 companies as, evil people. And so when we see other people who are being really successful, we kind of have this, oh, must be nice kind of attitude about it. And we kind of, like I said, demonize people who are making a lot of money, like they must be doing something unethical. And that has a very, very powerful subconscious effect on our own minds, where we're associating making more money with negative attention. And so in that way, we're sabotaging ourselves from making more money because we've assigned when we make more money, it comes with this negativity that we get from other people. And so we are subconsciously sabotaging our own wealth creation when we look at other people who are making a lot of money and we demonize them. And so that's the other thing that you need to stop doing. When other people are doing it, we need to be excited for them. We need to celebrate them so that we can rewire our own brain to give ourselves permission to start making more money. I thought that was really fascinating. That was gosh, I wish I could remember and pull up the clip. But it was a psychologist in a podcast, just talking about like money mindset. And until we learn to rewire those beliefs that have been instilled in us by our environment, like we can never start building it because we can't give ourselves the permission we need to make the changes we need to do it out of fear of judgment from other people.
Yeah, if you think it's bad, why would you run towards it?
Right. And even if you don't think it's bad, whenever you put negativity out there and assign that to someone else who's doing better than you are subconsciously telling yourself that it is bad to make more money. So I'd say those are the main mental things that you have to overcome before the strategies we're going to talk about here are going to be beneficial for you. So let's talk about the traditional financial advice that most DPTs kind of get when they come out of school, where they're frantically just trying to pay off their student loans as quickly as they can. Tell us about your story of paying off your loans in 2 years and why that actually wasn't the best approach.
Yeah, so I want to backtrack a little bit about like what my experience was with PT school, what they taught us. I was on my last clinical rotation, and our professors did site visits. She came and visited and sat me down and had conversation about how the rotation was going. And she's like, "Well, what's your plan after graduation?" I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna do traveling PT so I can start paying off my student loans." And she like had a cow. She's like, "You need more years of experience. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing this." And I'm like, I mean, believe me, I don't want to be doing traveling physical therapy more than you want me to do. It's like, well, it's just you see higher volume in outpatient world.
Yeah.
The reason I'm doing this is because I have student loans. It's like, well, we just can't figure out how we can decrease costs. Like, what do you mean? I paid 10 grand to be on this clinical rotation, make money for this clinic, and then pay for your flight down here, and you guys pocket all that money. Said in a nicer way. And she wasn't too happy with me, but it's the truth. Like it is what it is. We also had a class in PT school about it was pretty much the Dave Ramsey approach. Like,
Yep.
that you need to invest in yourself clinically. You need to, save money. This is how much you need to invest, stuff like that, and like stocks, stuff like that. Paying off my student loans in 2 years, why that from a strictly number standpoint was the wrong decision is because I could have taken that money and invested back into myself even more and invested in or invested in stocks or real estate. Because my interest rate was super low. I think it was like 4%. I can get more than 4% in the stock market and certainly more in real estate. So smart from a money standpoint, I would have just invested that money and then hopefully maybe have it. I don't know if it'd be forgiven or not, but just let that phase out ideally. Or just take the cash flow or the compounding interest, 30 years from now, and then use that to pay it off, right?
Yep.
Because that's the difference. Like, let's say you get 8% in the stock market, interest rate was 4% on my loan. That's the difference of 4%. You got 4% compounding interest that I no longer have because I did that. I paid off my loans. However, I would do it over again. I will say that I would pay off my loans again. The reason being, let's say it's financially not the right decision. The peace of mind that I have no student loan, no bad debt hanging over my head is worth that loss of 4% compounding interest. That's just a decision somebody has to make for themselves. But from strictly financials and number standpoint, it is not the smart decision to do. However, for me, the peace of mind of not having that is worth that numbers not mathing as well
Right.
with that compounding interest. So
Right, because you do have to worry about your income to debt ratio, especially when it comes to taking out loans. Like, if you want to invest in real estate, obviously, like that's an important thing for getting, your mortgage loans and all the other loans that you want to have. But, like you said, if you have a low interest rate on your loans, there are other investments that you could put that money into that's going to yield a higher return. So for me, for example, with my student loan, I have like 150K in student loan debt. I had closer to like 60K in student loan. And what I did was I paid the minimum amount I needed to pay on those loans and put the rest of the money into certain investments, either into coaching programs, into ads, or into even, the S&P 500 because its rate of return was higher than the interest rate I was paying on those student loans. And so I was profiting from that much faster. So I was slowly paying off my student loans, but I was making more money in the process that then allowed me eventually to start paying off my student loans at a faster rate. You do need, when you have that much debt, you do want to pay it off a little bit faster, but it would be wise to start splitting up your investments where live more frugally and get your money as soon as money comes in, get it away from you as fast as you can, put some into your student loans, but start putting a percentage of it into other investment vehicles that are yielding a higher rate of return than your student loan interest. But you need to start doing that now. So I would start either your own, either a Roth IRA or some, stock portfolio and have an automated transfer going into that every single month, at least a high yield bank account at the very minimum, or every single month, no matter what, you have money that is getting put aside into that right now. And that does mean that you have to live frugally. And honestly, I think that's the smartest way to live. Even if when you do start making a lot of money, like Ben and I are, Ben's reached a point where he is able, his assets pay for the lifestyle that he now has. I'm not quite to that point, but for me, like I could have bought a brand new car forever ago. I didn't because who cares? That's literally just to stroke my ego. I could have gotten a way better apartment years ago. I didn't because again, who's that for? Why do I need that? Is it because it makes me feel good because of how it looks to other people? Or is it really a smart decision? I'm still living in the same apartment I lived in when I was making less than $1,000 a month for years and I was completely broke. I still live in here and I get nicer stuff for this apartment, but it's like I live as if I'm broke because as soon as I get money, I get it as far away from me as possible. I invest it. I invest it into a coaching program. I invest it into stocks. I put some of it away into a high yield savings account. And that's just me saving that up for the next asset that I'm going to purchase, which is real estate. And so live like you're broke. Once you start making money, don't upgrade your lifestyle until you have the assets that are generating the profits that will pay for that lifestyle. Never pay to increase your lifestyle out of your own pocket.
The best way to outline the route on what I would do from an investment standpoint if I was to do it over again, it's about 90% of what I did, luckily. But first is graduate from PT school. I would start a practice right out of the gate. I would take anything. I would be working full-time or part-time for another clinic. I would be taking anything that I'm making from that job outside of rent that I got to pay for rent and other expenses, take that, invest in the coaching program, whether that help you build your business. From there, now you're starting to build a true asset. Now that asset, you're able to get more of your time back, decrease your hours at the place that you're currently working at. You're able to make more. Then you eventually hire on, get more cash flow, and you keep doing that until you've reached $250,000 of take home. Until then, don't worry about too much about investing in like stocks. Don't worry about, you can still do those things, definitely do it, but the main focus should be continuing to invest in yourself and building this asset that is your practice. Then once you do that, now you can start really looking at like, hey, how can I leverage real estate to decrease taxes? How can I use that as an investment vehicle? You can look at crypto, you can look at stocks, stuff like that. That's what I've started looking into doing lately in the last 3 years, is investing heavily in real estate. Real estate that has cash flow. I take that cash flow that pays for my car, that pays for my food. I could literally not have my practice, and the cash flow from my real estate and those assets pays for my entire lifestyle. So I can technically retire off of that. However, I want to continue to level up my lifestyle. So I want to continue to print money from the practice to pump into real estate. There's compounding interest and whatnot there too. However, I wouldn't have the real estate if I did not first build my practice.
Right.
I would not have my practice if I did not build myself and invest in myself personally. So it all goes back to that root of investing in yourself first and foremost.
Right.
Yes, you can still invest in stocks. Like you said, Jordan, you should automatically have deposits coming out of your bank account to go into stock
Right.
and investment.
I think it's important to circle back because it sounds like we contradicted ourselves, but we actually completely agree. Like when I first got started with anything, long before I was investing in stocks or into anything else, I was investing into coaching before I could even afford coaching. I knew I needed someone to show me how to build a self-sustaining and profitable business so that that could fund everything else. And when I think about I've invested at this point, $250,000 into coaching. And we did a calculation at our last live event. We had like a 24x rate of return on investing in ourselves and investing into coaching. And so that when you're first getting started, that is the only investment that you should be making. It yields the best return and is going to give you the leverage that you need to start investing and paying off your student loans at a much, much faster rate. I think the benchmark of until you're making about $250,000 a year, then start investing into stocks and all these other things. I think that's a really good benchmark. That's pretty much what I did as well. So when you first get started and you have a job and you do suddenly get this big increase in cash flow for yourself, do not change your lifestyle. Don't go upgrade your apartment. Don't go upgrade your car. Don't even upgrade your clothes unless that helps you feel like the person you're trying to become. Okay. Those are instead, take all of that money and invest in growing yourself. Okay. And until you are able to create, a business or some side hustle that's generating you enough income to upgrade your lifestyle, do not do it. Every single penny you make should be spent very frugally, and you should be spending like crazy on just educating yourself. One of my favorite quotes is from Eric Reese, and it's the only way to win is to learn faster than everybody else. And so once you get access to cash flow, every cent of that isn't essential for just maintaining whatever quality of life you already have should be going into furthering your education to stack the deck in your favor, that if you ever fall on hard financial times, you have the skill sets to be able to solve that problem quickly yourself.
That's as simple as that. But it's scary, you know. The best way to change your mindset is you invest $150,000 into a career that's going to pay you $80,000 to $100,000 a year. You pencil it out. It's not, from a financial standpoint, was not a smart investment. So if you invest $150,000 in the PT degree, you can invest, depends on what you invest in, but there's coaching programs that range from, $3,000 to $25,000 throughout the year. That the money that I've invested in myself and into coaching programs, the rate of return has been astronomically higher than, yeah, astronomically higher than PT school. I can say without a doubt, the worst investment I ever made was in PT school. Financial standpoint, I'm glad I did it because it's got me to where I am today. However, looking back, I almost wish I would have started a business before PT school, because strictly from a financial standpoint and number standpoint, PT school is the worst investment I made. So you, most likely those listening here, you probably hopefully already made the worst investment you made. And if you are, and you probably feel good about it. You probably feel good about it, and you won't know until how bad that actually is until you start investing in yourself and seeing what you can do with other coaching programs, investing in yourself. So if you can invest $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 in PT school, I promise you the investment in yourself will be much, much better.
Right. What's always driven me is having stability. I never wanted my life to be in someone else's hands because growing up, we had no stability. And all I saw was how hard my dad was working and how much he got his just ass kicked by his bosses and the people that were in charge of him. And so everything that I've done and invested into teaching myself the skills to market, to sell, how to build a profitable business, whether it's clinical marketer or anything else that I build, like the skills that I've acquired through those investments have made me unfuckwithable. Okay. Because there's nothing that can possibly happen. Even if clinical marketer tanked tomorrow, I have the skills that I know I could start making as much money as I already am almost immediately because of the investments I've made in myself. And that kind of security feels really, really good, that no matter what happens, I'm not going to have to get on my hands and knees and crawl to somebody else and hope that they start paying me. I've built the skill set for me to be able to basically be independent and survive on my own in pretty much any circumstance. And that is a really, really good place to be. And so right out of the gate, when you don't increase your lifestyle, start investing in the skill sets that will make you unfuckwithable, where you know that your skill set are in extreme high demand if you ever did need to go and get a job, or you at least know how to create an offer, how to market that offer, and how to sell that offer so that if you ever do need a quick surge of cash flow, you know exactly how to do it. It's the most valuable skill set you could have in this modern age. And then that creates all the cash flow and everything else you need to start fueling and funding all these other investments. But best advice ever is don't increase your lifestyle. Think of, instead of doing that, how could you use that same amount of money that you're going to spend on a new pair of shoes or on a new car? What's another place that you could put that money that would allow you to triple it or quadruple it rather than it just being the opposite of an asset? Liability. There we go. Okay. Don't put your money in liabilities until your assets are the ones paying for it. I had a rule for a while that served me very well. Like whenever I wanted to buy something that was expensive, I would put it into a high yield savings account, that amount of money. And I would wait at least 2 weeks 30 days, wait until the emotional part of the buying process kind of fizzled out. Then I'd ask myself, where else could I put this money? And do I still want that thing bad enough? I would forego the extra cash flow I would generate if I put it into ads or put it into any other investment. I would recommend anybody do that. Before you buy anything, think of yourself, could I, instead of investing in this liability, could I put this somewhere else where it would double or triple my money instead? And I've done that for years and it's served me very, very well. That's why I don't have like a bunch of nice crap. I don't care about nice crap. I don't need the ego boost. I would much rather put that somewhere else where it's going to compound or at least give me more like peace of mind and joy, like traveling. That's the only thing I'll spend my money on. Basically traveling and clothes.
If you have to make a decision on a spot, ask yourself, would you spend 5 times? Would you feel comfortable spending 5 times this amount on this? That's good. That's a good one too that I use a lot.
Right. Right. It's a really good one. So some just tactical things for you to start increasing your cash flow. Find the job that you want to have. If it's PRN work or any other job that you have, that find something that'll pay you, but also gives you some of your time to focus on building a side hustle or something else, whether it's a cash practice or some other business that you run. Find a job that gives you a little bit of that freedom that you can start to focus your time on building those assets. It's going to pay you dividends for years to come. Like Ben, when you first got out of school, you found a job that you could have a day off every single week and be a little bit more flexible with your hours to give you that time to focus on building those.
I did 4 10-hour days and then had Mondays off. And then I used the 3 days outside of that to build my practice. And then
Yeah.
once the income that I was making from my practice allowed me to take another day off from work, then I went down to 3 days, went down to 2. I just did that until I was completely full time. It was honestly not, I was never stressed about money. I was always making the same amount the entire time. I was just trying to get more of my time back, which was a great feeling, right? Yeah, it did suck grinding for, a year. I mean, it took me about 6 months to get full time on my own. And that was a grind, but 100% worth it. I can promise you doing that is way less of a grind than working in a outpatient clinic with 8-foot ceilings and fluorescent lights and dumbbells that go up to 5 pounds for the next
Right.
5 years. That was a much bigger fear. And anytime I struggled with things, I just matched myself in that environment for the next 35 years. And that's
Right.
all.
And I think this is the trap that most of you listening and most new grads fall into, where they see their massive debt. And so they find the highest paying job that they can that is going to take up all of their time. They get the big pay increase. It feels really good. They increase their lifestyle. Now without realizing it, they put themselves in a trap. You might have a higher paying job, but now it's taking up all of your time and it's still gonna take 20 to 30 years to pay off your student loan debt. It is better for a lot of people. If you're just not an entrepreneur, maybe this isn't the right advice for you. But if you are someone who is self-motivated, that does want a better life for themselves, that doesn't want to work until they're, 60 years old, well, then your best option right out of school is finding a job that might pay a little bit less, but gives you your time, your most valuable asset ever. So you can use that time to figure out how you can triple and quadruple your cash flow. And so it's better to kind of take a step back and take a pay cut to get the time to figure out how to make more money on your own so you can be independent as soon as possible.
Yeah. If you're not an entrepreneur, go find a cash-based physical therapy clinic.
Amen.
We have profit sharing involved within our practice, and our clinic directors are very compensated very well, and they get profit sharing. You can kind of catch somebody else's wave if you don't want to, start from scratch. If you're not feeling like that entrepreneurial to start your own thing, you'll work for a cash-based practice. It's most likely a very small practice. You can work your way up and really build something with somebody and be able to capitalize on that too, and move into a profit sharing model and just take on more responsibilities as a clinic director.
So to summarize everything that we've talked about here, number one is we have to increase our financial thermostat of what our baseline normal is, and we have to let go of the fear of being judged by our own inner circles when we increase that financial baseline. Because a lot of people stay stuck out of judgment of outgrowing their own inner circle. You have to become aware of those forces that are working on you and work to, instead of spending money as you get it, increase that financial baseline and then don't increase your lifestyle as soon as you start making money. Invest in assets and education that's going to help you further elevate your financial baseline. And stop scrutinizing other people for making a lot of money and assuming that if they have a lot of money, that it was collected it in unethical ways. That is subconsciously sabotaging your own ability to make more money. Then you want to talk about the recap, the student loan debt?
Student loan from the percentage on like the opportunity cost, like if you invest in stocks and whatnot. So When it comes to stocks and like paying off your student loans and other investments, depends on your interest rates. And again, we're not financial advisors. That's just what's worked for me and what I've seen. So let's say your interest rates are 4%. Say you can get a rate return of 8% in the stock market. 8 minus 4 is 4%. If you pay off your student loans, you are trading 4% of compounding interest, but if you otherwise would have invested in stocks. However, there's also the mental standpoint of it too. Is that 4% worth it to have student loans hanging over your head? Some will say yes, some will say no. That's an answer. That's only you can answer that question. For me, the answer was I would rather have them paid off and not have them hanging over my head. Even though financially, the number standpoint and a non-emotional, that was not the right decision.
Right.
There's emotions involved with it too.
So weigh what you're investing in. Is there a different way that you could get a higher rate of return than what it is you're putting your money in? Be conscious of that and make the best decision for you based on your own comfort level with your debt. And then the third part of that is if you don't want to spend the next 20, 30 years paying off your student loan debt, then don't take the highest paying job that's going to take up all of your time. Find another job that ideally also pays really well, but prioritize your time over the cash flow. Because if you're willing to invest the money you're making into education so that you could use that time to increase your own cash flow independent of your job, you're going to be able to pay off your student loans in 3 to 5 years versus 20 to 30. And so that's the framework. Become aware of your financial thermostat. Stop scrutinizing people for making a lot of money so that you can stop sabotaging yourself. Understand how interest rates work and figure out where the smarter place is to put your money based off of your own risk tolerance level. And then if you want to pay off your money quickly, then find a job that gives you the time that is going to allow you to not only invest in learning, but also give you the time and space to be able to implement the things that you learn. If you can do those things for 5 years, your life is going to be very, 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 very different.
That's all I can say too.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. If you have any questions on any of this stuff, drop it in the comments. We'd be more than happy to answer it on the next episode. If you got value out of this, make sure to let us know and like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks, guys. Peace.
See you.